It's time to talk Florida State and Miami.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you once again for making this your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I just wanted to do this live show for a couple of reasons. Number one, allow people to discuss their thoughts about the quarterback situation. I think there's a battle, whether it's directly and inadvertently, however you want to say it. Two young quarterbacks played against Duke, and that is a fact. We need to accomplish some ground rules with that. Basically, there are none. If you think one guy's going to play, let it rip. If you think another guy should play, let it rip. This is competition. This is big boy football. It's Florida State. So let's talk about who, what, when, where, why, and how with the quarterbacks. Two, this one's kind of obvious. I don't think there is an answer for this, but how does Florida State slow down the Miami offense? We'll talk a little bit about that. I have stats over here that are just mind-blowing for the Miami Hurricanes. Talked a little bit about it in a podcast earlier. I've got a crossover podcast coming up for Monday with Alex Dono. That'll be up in the morning as well. There's not many offenses more explosive than the Canes. And then finally, I still want to bring this back up if anybody wants to discuss it. I'm not going to really jump into it much, but I did put it on the page here for those of you watching live or anybody checking it out later on YouTube. FSU coaching changes. Florida State has improved, especially on defense, but the offense, I mean, there are so many issues with it. I'm not sure that I could count them all. So anybody in the chat, or again, if you're somebody that watches this podcast later and you want to comment on YouTube, whatever it may be, let it rip. I'm more than happy to find out just whatever it is you're looking for. Contract information. We could discuss where somebody's been and maybe a possible candidate. There's all kinds of things on the table. It's not just who you fire. It's who you hire that matters in the college football world. So all things coaching are open as well. And if you got something else random, fire it out. But those are the things on my mind. Anybody that gets in the chat and wants to comment, fire away. It's just a basic podcast tonight. I don't expect to be here more than a half hour or so, but let's have a little fun. Tommy Guns. I couldn't agree more with Tommy's statement. He says, I would be highly surprised if this game is close. Tommy, not only do I not think it's going to be close, I think it'll get ugly and early. That is pretty much the way I see it. Prove me wrong. Mike Merrick, go Noles. Mike, go nuts. What's up, Mike? Glad to have you in the pod. Garrett, Luke made the best throws on Saturday. It honestly doesn't matter who the quarterback is. We don't have any receivers that can catch. I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing this, but the receivers just got to catch the ball. Garrett couldn't be more correct. At the end of the day, no quarterback is any better than his receiver, and no receiver is any better than his quarterback. Right now, the receivers are letting down the signal callers big time. Excuse me. 3 main drops. Again, I just want to reiterate this. I do this on Sunday. I'll probably do this in every pod this week. You have a drop by Malik early in the game. Kick a field goal, should have been a touchdown drive. You had the bomb right in Kentron's hands in the end zone. Obviously, that should be 6 points. And then you had the bomb yet again to Hakeem, and he dropped it. 3 plays that changed the game right there. They had other plays like the partial point block. If he does this slightly different, it's probably a touchdown or a safety. Those kinds of plays are important too. But when the ball's physically in your hands, I don't want to hear anything about coaching. I don't hear anything about circumstance. That's on the person attempting to catch the football. No more, no less. Right now, Florida State is failing miserably in that area, and there's just no other way to put it. Florida State should be, keyword should be, a team that's able to just throw basic routes like that if they're dropped in the breadbasket and there not being any problems. For some reason, there is, though. It's really nuts to me. And to be honest, I'm not sure why Florida State has struggled so much with this, because those are good. I got Kentron, for example, fifth-year senior. How many times has he run under a pass in a Florida State practice or game? He didn't come close to catching that. Like that missed pretty bad. And it was dropped in NFL throw. That, by the way, that was the first throw Luke made in a Noles uniform. So bad. And I feel really bad for him on that. But it just is what it is. We got to see more guys catching it. Please comment in the chat. I'll get back into those in a second. I want to go through some stats here just to kind of give people an idea of what's going on here with Miami. And then I'll give some discussion points, I think, on how they should attack. I mean, this is just my opinion, and I'll go into it in a second. But these are some of the stats where I think you need to know, and just how potent the Miami Hurricanes are when they have the football. These are the offensive numbers. You didn't catch the other pod. Here they are. They're just going to go down the list. Passing game. All the rankings are national, not ACC. 388.4, number 1 in the nation. Scoring, 48.3, number 2 in the nation. Rushing, 188.9, 38th. Total offense, 577.3 yards, number 1. Passing plays of 20 or more yards are number 1 in the nation, 47 of them. Runs of 20 or more yards. They are number 17 in the nation with 14 of them. Red zone touchdown percentage. They've been in the red zone 28 times, punched it in for a touchdown 21 times. That is 75%, 12th. It's a low number for them. Third downs. This is maybe the craziest stat. 60.2%, number 1 in the nation. Here's a little extra to that I went in and looked at it. The most important down is not just third down, it's third and medium. What do I mean by third medium? 4 to 6. That is the common number that you're going to see. Here's what Cam Ward is when they throw the football on third and medium. It's 14 out of 17, 82.4%, 215 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Again, 17 attempts, 17, and they have 12 first downs on that. That is insanity. He's actually higher on those than he is third and shorts. It's incredible, but he's good on third and longs. He can pick it up. He's got, I believe, 195 yards rushing this. Yeah, 195 yards rushing, 5.4 yards per 3 scores, 10.3 yards per attempt, 24 touchdowns, 5 picks, 169 to 246 overall, 68.7%, 2,538 yards. So their passing game is killing it. Third down, 60.2%. And one of the main reasons why is he makes people miss and he extends plays. They are giving up more sacks than I thought. Part of it is he doesn't get rid of the ball quite as quick. He takes more chances. They've given up 12. That's 57th. They can get into the point where you can only pass block for so long. Miami might have a few sacks against Florida State's front. They're pretty good at getting after it. Tackles for loss allowed. They're 18th in the nation, only 26th this year. Turnovers, they've had 3 fumbles they've lost and 4 picks for 7 total. That's 37th of the nation. This is another insane stat. Per play, this counts passing and rushing. Per play, Miami is number 1 in the nation at 8.05 yards per play. Ridiculous. So if you look at those numbers, you should be a little concerned. I mean, most people probably are in some way, shape, or form, because it's not easy to slow down an offense that's balanced. And to say the least, Miami is. Florida State just went up against an offense at Duke, which I don't know how many touchdowns they would score if they were playing 11-0. They just don't have any chemistry right now. I don't think that Malik Murphy is ready. I think this year he's going to be his growing pains year. Next year, he'll be pretty decent. And then as a 5th-year senior, he'll probably be pretty nasty. He's just taking longer, and that's fine. Cam Ward's been through all that. Xavier Restrepo is arguably the best slot receiver in college football. It's his go-to guy. He's averaging over 17 yards a catch. He's probably a first-team All-American right now. They don't have 1, but they have 2 NFL running backs in terms of size, strength, and production. I don't think there's any doubt with all that combination that Miami is the most balanced offense in the country, passing and running. Now, they do pass a little more because Cam is just so good, but when they want to pound it, they can. That offensive line is massive, minus the center. He's a kid transfer from Indiana. He's a good player, but he's not great. I'm curious to see how he does against the big guys for the Noles in the middle. I think he might struggle a little bit. I do think that Port State will get a few more TFLs, but again, that's why I brought up the third downs. Miami they find a way to convert, and congrats to them. This will be the first game where Florida State secondary is also challenged in those. They got some really good athletes in the secondary. They can run. They got experience. They got two really talented corners. Shaheem's having a great year at safety. But you're going to go up against a team where the smallest of windows being open is difficult. So when a bad play happens, or Miami just makes a really good one, how do you shake it off? Do you do a good job of it? Because if not, you're going to be probably in some trouble. Get back into the chat here. Let's see, where are we at? Oh boy, a whole bunch of people decided to make something here. All right, Tommy, what if Mike decides to keep everyone on staff for cohesion's sake? He really doesn't have an incentive to change anything. He's such a nice guy who doesn't fire assistants. Tommy, let me make this very clear, and thank you for bringing this up. If that happens, Mike needs to be fired. I would be shocked. Also, the AD would need to be fired. I don't care how many years somebody's been where. There is obvious change is needed for the sake of change at this point. And I don't know what Florida State's trying to do financial. I'm not in their purse strings. This staff is not very good for the quote-unquote elite teams in college football. For the record, the elite teams are the three Florida schools: Georgia, Clemson, Bama, Auburn, Tennessee, LSU, A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, SC, Oregon, Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State. Those are the only schools that win titles since 1980. The only exception was the weird year in 1990, and then 84 with BYU. This voting, BYU wanted, they weren't the best team. They didn't play much of a schedule, but they went undefeated. 90, Georgia Tech split it with Colorado. But those other 18 teams winning, those are the teams. That's it. Florida State staff right now is probably bottom three in that 18, would be my guess. I'd imagine that Auburn staff, they're struggling, obviously. I think they're 2-5 now. They're not much different than what Florida State is. That would be another one I'd be curious about. But Florida State staff's got to change. I think minimum they got to have three guys that are out the door. So we shall see if that's the case. But I'm pretty steadfast that it's not going to end well in that regard. I'll come back here in just a second on Locked On Seminoles. Got a bunch of people in the chat. We'll talk more Noles and Canes. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough day the next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to take ZBiotics for your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel better the very next day. For the best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Wake up the next morning refreshed and ready to go. Go to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed by 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund the money, no questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. All right. Let's see where we are. We got a bunch of comments in the chat. That filled up quickly. Let's see here from Garrett. Is there any possibility that both Luke and Brock transfer out? What would keep them there? Bad O-line and skill players. More than likely a difference. Offensive staff next season, not good. I don't think that would happen just because guys want to play. This is my experience, and this is a good question. This is an educational question, really. If guys want to play, like I know Luke pretty well, he's a competitive kid. He went to a military school in Savannah, Benedictine. Those kind of guys don't generally run. You know what I mean? I don't know Brock Glenn as well. I've met him, had a brief conversation with him. I wasn't covering Florida State at that time, and I didn't know him prior because he was from the state of Tennessee. But he didn't strike me as the kind of guy that run either. Will they take a transfer portal quarterback after this year? They almost have to because you need to get another guy while Trammell gets in. You don't want to have just junior, sophomore, freshman. You don't have a senior or fifth-year senior. Maybe they take a guy that's just a backup. But I don't think they're going to leave, even if they change staff, just because there's an opportunity to play. So it would have to be a big change in philosophy, and I don't think that's going to happen. Bobby Davis says, hope Mike grabs O-line coach from Indiana, probably be cheap to get and getting it done with less up there. Indiana's offense is insane. They don't have near the talent Miami does, and they are as efficient as it gets. I can't explain it, and I don't know what their staff is in terms of contracts and all that, but they're going to have a lot of people after them. Indiana's never been a school to get top talent for the most part, and they're killing it. They're right there with Miami in some of the stats. So that wouldn't be a bad idea. Breakdancer. Dion needs to be the next head coach of Florida State. So let's be honest, he would out-recruit Norvell and win games. He would inspire the fan base and never before. I have a lot of thoughts on Dion, and I am just the opposite of you. I know that he has a lot of physical problems, basically with his feet. He had his foot cut. He doesn't get around well. He doesn't go visit recruits for in-home visits like other coaches do. He does few. But I don't think he would be near the recruiter that many others do. Also, the NIL factor is a lot bigger now. Dion, say 5 years for NIL start. Like if he'd have been the coach at Florida State and been ready, say 218, something like that, it'd been different. With NIL, it changes things, and I don't think Florida State's NIL is anywhere near as good as some of the elite schools. That's a topic for another day, though. Brett Taylor. At Bobby Davis, heck, get the OC O-line coaches from Navy. Look at their stats. The Navy's offense is impressive. They throw about 10 times a game, and they are smoking people. Garrett. Bobby, I hope we grab the Indiana head coach. He's not leaving, by the way. He doesn't seem like the friendliest guy, but Google him, he wins. He does, yeah, and he's a cocky guy, but they're backing it up. They beat Nebraska by 49. I mean, that's pretty impressive. David Marr says, 0 chance Noles lose by less than 30. I got him in that range. I'm not real excited to see it, but I'll be watching. Tommy Guns, Arroyo will be a problem. He's a good tight end. He's done a nice job for Miami. And think about this. He's their 4th option. He'll probably get a chance to play in the NFL if he passes physical. He's had some injuries. But that's a really athletic tight end. That's a good point by Tommy Guns. Matthew Abete, I wonder if Florida State's D-line can give Miami problems like Tech. I think they will. I think that's the one thing that I'm pretty confident with. Florida State's pass rush is solid. That's been the case for most of the year. Tackles for loss, they're pretty good in that. Let me see if I could pull up one of these stats here. What we got? National tackles for loss. Noles, where are we at here? Florida State is 33rd in tackles for loss. Sacks, Florida State right now. It's gone down because teams just run the ball. They just know they don't have to score much. So they've got 17 sacks. That's 30 sacks. They've got a pretty decent pass rush. They'll give them some problems. Will it be dominant? I don't know about dominant, but I think Florida State will give them some problems. Next up, Brett Taylor. Our problem with Miami is our D may be able to hold them under 40, but our O is so bad we won't be able to score 20 even against their poor defense. I agree. Miami has a good front. Their secondary at one of the corner spots have a lot of problems. But Darryl Porter's pretty good. You'll avoid him. Linebackers are okay in coverage, not great. Defense front's nasty. Their best defensive player might be the guy that came down from Michigan State. I forget his name, but he's been a real menace. I believe he's number 10 for the Hurricanes. And you got Ruben Bain. It's finally getting back and getting into the rhythm. They're not going to be fun to deal with. David Mars, bingo. Brett, Bobby Davis. Need a wide receiver coach from out west. Why out west? I'm not sure what that's got to do with anything. Let's see. Our secondary can't cover anyone. Why would you say that? Frederick Smith says that. I thought Thomas and Cypress played really well against Duke. I'm not sure why you say that. They don't give up 180 yards total. Tommy Guns, I emphatically concur. Bobby Davis, everyone throws and completes on us 3rd and long. Defense isn't good either. Here's the thing that of all the stats defensively, and Bobby brings up a good point, when you've got a pretty good pass rush, guys like Peyton, etc., why is it that you struggle on 3rd and longs? Like there's just been so many snafus, especially with keeping quarterbacks contained. That's the one thing Florida State still stinks at. I don't get it, but teams have been pretty clutch against Florida State on 3rd downs. Kelvin Oliver, why is the current staff so bad at recruiting? Relationships, lack of perseverance, not likable. I don't know them personally. I've only met one of them, but well, that's not true. I've met more than one, but I only know one a little bit. I've just heard they're not that great at recruiting. Like I don't think a lot of them want to be there, but why are you in college if that's the case? And why did Mike hire some of them? Fair or not, recruiting is 80% of college football. And right now, Florida State is failing on that 80% very, very much. Anthony, and I'm not going to try to pronounce your name, the last name. Cam Davis and Washington going to be out. Miami getting 8 sacks, a pick 6, and 1 quarterback knocked out of the game. That wouldn't be shocking, to be honest. Let's see what we got. Kenny, NIL. Yeah, I know. NIL is not going well for Florida State. Bobby Davis, I think our staff feels like players should just want to be Noles, like a scholarship is a blessing, and young kids don't see it that way. Bobby Davis, those days are over. Injury report on Cam in Washington, I have no idea. I'm not sure Florida State knows, and if they did, they wouldn't tell me in rivalry week, so it ain't going to matter. We'll know on game day. Anthony again, Miami is just going to bring pressure every down and stop the run and pressure Brock and make Brock beat them. Not going to happen. Anthony's correct. When you have a young quarterback like the Florida State Seminoles do, it's not easy, to be really honest. It's really not easy to get him in a rhythm against a team that's as good as Miami. They're going to mix it up in the back end a little bit. Their secondary does get confused. I expect Florida State to score maybe 10 points. Unless Miami has a pick 6 or something they give up, which with Cam's possible. But Florida State's going to go up against a secondary that's not going to have to cover for very long. Florida State can't pass block. So you're going against some NFL guys up front? How do you think that's going to go? Not well. Ian Coleman. Brian, can you arrange for the Florida State recruiting class to sit near the Canes bench like the Gators did? Oh, that's hilarious. Palm Beach Cane. Mario's going to run the score up. He probably will. Florida State did it to him 2 years ago, so I don't think that's any question of what will happen. Miami 45-24. That's the prediction from Uncle Joey. Let's see. Peanut. Mario remembers the last time at Hard Rock. He's out to Port on, y'all. I'm thinking a 60 burger. I don't know if they'll get 60, but they'll score a lot. Jenny Larrabee, Simeon Barrow. Oh, that's the defensive tackle. Thank you for that. He's pretty darn good. He's a humongous guy, too. Frank Myers, same thing. Peanut said the shoe was going to be on the other foot. FSU is going to win at the last. FSU went the right. I don't know when they'll win again, but it ain't going to be this year. Knights of Zerg. FSU is going to ball out and beat Miami. Whatever drugs you're on, please seek help. There's help available. Whatever drugs you're on. Miami is not losing to Florida State. Jerry Ingram. This year we will blow it out by Miami. This is shameful that we have an incompetent staff that can't recruit and definitely can't develop players. Here to Jerry Ingram. Jenny Werribee. Go Canes. Jerry Ingram. Great analogy. 10 points maybe. Yeah, I just don't think they'll be able to pass protect. Prove me wrong. I mean, they couldn't pass protect against Duke. Why would they be able to pass protect against a better defense? As far as just raw talent. They're not better cohesive, but I just don't see it. So if we get blown out, over 2.5 starters opting out for the rest of the season, the over-under, I don't think that's necessarily the case because most of those guys are already past the 4-game limit. The exception is if anybody's banged up, they might just sit out and go to the draft. Let's see. Bleed orange and green. I respect the honesty on Florida State. Think Miami's safety suspect would go Canes. Jerry Ingram. Brian, I wonder when we will make staff changes after the season. If they don't, I'll have a very long and very boisterous live show. Make sure you tune in. Mike Sierra. I'm confident Canes get the W, but I'd expect Florida State's best game of the season. They still have talent and will be motivated. Not enough, but not nothing. Troy Taylor. As a sports bettor, this is one of the best games all year to bet on. Mortgage your house that Miami covers. Easy money. This way, Norvell can finally give back. Holy crap, that is hilarious. Thanks, Brian. You are very welcome, Jerry. Jenny, as a Canes fan, what is y'all's best position group? Defensive lines played pretty well of late. I would say the secondary has a lot of talent, but they're not challenged a ton because teams run the ball. Don't take chances in the passing game all that much because they know Florida State's not going to score. So it's kind of hard to say for sure. It's definitely not linebacker, O-line, quarterback, or receiver. Tight ends, young. They got a couple of freshmen that are playing a lot. Running back's pretty talented. But there's the gamut for you. Philip. Let's see. Record projection for the rest of the season. Florida State will win 1 or 2 games for the rest of the season. That's what I think. Cuban Kane. How long will it take for FSU to rebuild? Depends. If they fire the right people after this season and maybe after the next one as well to start over about 4 years from now. Drew Winfield. Cam Ward is going to eat good on Saturday. Probably will. Brett Taylor. Kicker and punter are our best group. I didn't really think about using special teams, but Brett is right. Both guys are All-Americans. Mastrobono at punter. Fitz at kicker. He kicked another 50-plus yarder. I think he's going to play in the NFL quite a while. Florida State special teams are really, really high level. Mike Sierra. Any injury news for Florida State? Believe Canes are mostly healthy except the cornerback out that's been missing for weeks. That's Damari Brown. I don't know of anything specific because in a game week, it's hard to get an injury news, especially when it's a rival. Darius went out. He's been banged up. I don't know if he's going to be back at tackle. And then, of course, Cam fumbled and got hurt on that play. I'm not sure on him either. Coaches are just going to lie about that stuff. I haven't heard anything, though. Let's see. Got Bobby Davis. Special teams is the only safe position on staff. Special teams are legit. Like their coverage is good. There was a big hit against Duke. Both kicker and punter are excellent. To be honest, I'm trying to think the kickoff return for a touchdown. Kind of hard to argue with it. Jerry Ingram. Locked on Seminoles #1 show. Thanks for your honesty. Knowles 2026, a long time to wait. I know, but we need a new coaching regime. What's your opinion on that? Agreed. Jerry, how would anybody not think that Florida State doesn't need new coaches? They're horrible. They're embarrassing. Defense has picked it up. I will give them credit. But that first game against Georgia Tech, they looked like they were in quicksand. Some of the play, not all, but some of them, especially up front. So it's hard. Let's see. A Gators fan says, got to let you know, Florida versus Kentucky prediction was very wrong. Well, that's fine. I don't really care about that. Let's see. Norvell is going to turn this around now that we're in a slump. We would extend him another 20 years. We'll get such a great deal. I know things look bleak, but now is when we need to stick together. Manny Suarez. Well, Manny, that's an interesting perspective. Thank you for that. Titan Rama. It's funny, but Cam Ward is going to win the game for Florida State. He will throw at least 2 picks, 1 pick six, and 2 fumbles. Titan, like I told somebody else earlier in the pod, drugs are bad. Seek help. No chance Miami is going to lose to Florida State. Disturbed Villain. I believe this game will be closer than projected. It's a rival, and it's 8 week. Go Canes. It could be, but Got freshman quarterbacks out there. That's hard. Appreciate it, Brian. Good show. Thank you for Mike Sierra. I appreciate it, buddy. I appreciate it much. Florida, 48, Kentucky, 20. You said you thought Kentucky by a touchdown. I did. Kentucky looked lethargic to me. I watched some of that game. They didn't look the same. I think their lack of depth, lack of recruiting caught up with them. By the way, Lagway looked pretty good. Maybe if we actually use the Waffle House menu as a playbook, we might score some more points. That's for Garrett. If any of you didn't see that guy on the sideline at the Duke, that's hilarious. Or in the stands, that was hilarious. Manny Suarez, I'm convinced that after next week, our daddy's push over we'll have a fresh start, and with the right moves, we'll be battling for a title in 2,978. Congratulations on that. That's hilarious. Let's see. Raised Kane. Atkins is not what I thought he was. No. The offensive line and the passing game, everything has been pretty bad, to be really honest with you. When you joining Dono next? We're doing a crossover podcast that will be up on Monday. We just did the pod right before I did this podcast. So Dono's pod will be up, and I'll put this one up probably for Tuesday. I'll repod this, but Dono's a great guy, and he knows Miami very well, and anything South Florida. He knows that area to a T. Let's see. Palm Beach Kane. How can they keep Norvell? In 5 years, they have 3 losing seasons, not even bowl eligible. Well, they just signed him. It's not that they can't fire him. They don't want to pay him $60 million or whatever. It's something in that range. Money talks. Kind of is what it is on that, but what are you going to do? So I wish I had more on that, but Canes own Florida State an embarrassment, and it is going to happen 60-13 Canes. I don't know if it'll be 60-13, but I've got a pretty big score that's similar that you all will see when my pod drops tomorrow at 11:30, the one I did the crossover with Alex Dono. 11:30 Monday, you'll be able to check it out. Let's see, Miami 52, Florida State 17. It's reasonable. $65 million is what Bobby Davis says the buyout is right now for Norvell. That is not a pretty number. Let's see. Miami's best O-lineman is back. Didn't play against Tech. Oh, you're talking about the left tackle. He's pretty good. Jalen Rivers, he's a pretty good player. If he's healthy and he's in condition, I don't know how much he's been conditioned and been able to. He's a good ball player. Anthony. What we got here? Palm Beach King can't afford to fire him and can't afford to keep him. That's a good way to put it. Florida State's in a bad spot with that. I don't think there's any doubt. So take that for whatever it's worth. I'm not against what you're saying. It just is what it is. I've went a long time here. I'm going to get another quick break in and then do a wrap up. Thank for everybody for coming in, making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate it. We'll be back in just 1 second to talk more Noles and Kings. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet? If you have not, you're missing out because it's a great way to get tickets to just about anything. College football, like Florida State and Miami. There are some tickets available as last I heard, just under $100. Check that out. You can see the view from your seat in that stadium. All you got to do is click on it inside the app, go to the Florida State Miami game. You can pick any seat you want that's available, and you can see what the venue looks like from that. It's pretty cool. That's a great feature. Also, like an option that they have for all-inclusive pricing. You can set it up in the app. It doesn't come that way. You can set it up. So the price you get is the same at the front as it is at the back. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right. Let's see. Let's see what we got here. Would leaving the conference help Florida State? Just depends on what the deal is. Devil's in the details, my friend. It is definitely in the details. Jerry Ingram. Brian, do you think either the backup quarterbacks will be our starter next year, or do you bring in another transfer? The only reason you'd bring in a transfer, somebody's banged up or something, or they just really play horrible the rest of the year. I think you're kind of to the point where you got to go with your own guy. But at the same time, it depends on who's available. I don't know who it's going to be. I think it's going to be a pretty bad year for transfer quarterbacks. Who's available? That's always the most important thing. Supply and demand. Drew Winfield. Norvell has only won 3 games without Jordan Travis. That's not good. Let's see. Cuban Kane would leave the conference help. Already did that one. Let's see here. FSU players seem like they have checked out, except for a few of them. Team morale looks down. I thought they played hard, especially on defense. They looked better than they did in some of the others. But look, you can look at it any way you want. Let's see how they look in the next one. You can't change the past. If they get down big to Miami, and they will, how do they react? What's the effort? Are the backups still engaged, etc.? Those are things you look for in body language and understanding a roster. If it's not what I expect it to be and it's closer, then obviously it'll be good. But I don't think that's going to transpire. Again, prove me wrong. Here are a few thoughts on what I would do looking at this game. And I just want to talk about it from a Florida State defensive perspective against Miami. I would try to pressure with 4 and cover and make Cam think, because he'll get frustrated at some point. You'll at least get a pick somewhere. That's how I look at it. I'd also think that they're going to have to rotate pretty heavy. Miami's not going to go tempo, I don't think. They might do a little bit, but they're going to want to grind it. Probably run just a little bit more than they have, because they know Florida State's not going to score much. They don't need to risk Cam throwing it. So Florida State needs to tackle well and just be good with the run gap hits. They did much better against Duke. They had a couple of goofy plays, but overall they were pretty darn good. So I'm looking at that as a possibility where Florida State's going to be okay. Also, third point here, if they get a turnover opportunity, they got to capitalize. If it's a pick 6, excuse me, make it a pick 6. Don't miss any opportunities. Let's see here. Peanut says, still playing Slick Willie, and then they're done to playing like Mike. I don't know what that means. Brian, what's your take on FSU O-line, Miami's D-line? They will get murdered. Miami's D-line is really good. They have multiple NFL players on it. Florida State's O-line has no chemistry, and I just don't think they're very good in general. At this point, especially Darius. If Darius doesn't play, they could get 10 sacks. They could get 10 sacks. Jerry, thanks, Brian. I appreciate it, Jerry. Not a problem at all. Kings for Life, do you see Mario flipping any FSU recruits? I think anybody could. Florida State and Florida, like, they got coaches on the hot seat, as far as I'm concerned. I know some people, Mike's not going to get fired. Everybody knows he's in trouble. You can call it what you want, and they're having a terrible season. Who knows who it would be, but it's always a possibility. Javier, Miami can't sweep on the Noles. I think they could take a pillow to the 50-yard line. Greg Brown, recruiting has been abysmal for Florida State. They don't seem to have answers for holes they need to fill. The guys that got committed are good. They really are. They just don't have enough of them. So bizarre. Grouch, FSU could have had Prime, his son and Travis, as well as all the eyes he brings, all the transfers and all that, but they didn't do it. Yeah, well. Miami by 90. That's from Ethan Charles. Ethan, that won't happen. Dog walking FSU. Let's see here. Play the kids. Well, Wayne McCoy is a dog. That's from Ian Coleman. Well, Wayne probably needs to get in the lineup some. I would agree with that. Let's see. Hattie May. Norvell got to go, right? Well, he's not. They got a $65 million contract with him. But I'd agree that he needs to go. They're in a bad spot because they just signed him to a long-term deal. Good luck with that. Josh, bowl, this is needed for Florida State. Lose this no bowl, obviously. Yeah, well, Florida State ain't going to no bowl game. I can assure you that. Chad Kinsworth. Not only is Norvell losing on the field, he's going to cost FSU revenue. Facts. A lot of it. Eric, OCO is going to decommit from FSU this weekend. Post of the night. That's pretty funny. Palm Beach Kane. What does FSU have to do to turn the program around? I think they need a coaching staff change and an AD change. No big deal. I think massive change is needed at Florida State to rebuild. Just what it is. That is going to do it for tonight. I appreciate you all for stopping in. Thank you very much once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate it. I will see you all again very soon. Thank you for stopping in. I will be back again later this week. Going to talk some matchups a little bit more with Florida State's offense against Miami's defense. They got one hole. That I'm curious about. We'll talk about that when we get back into it again later this week. But I've got a podcast already lined up for Monday. I'm going to have this coming up as well you can download. Make sure you come back and check us out. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good one.